What's going on, family? Welcome back to the channel. I am Corey, one half of His and Herbs, and we're just some small time, soon to be big time gardeners, growing food in the high desert of Southern California. All right, so first of all, let me say this. When I say big time gardeners, let me elaborate on that a little bit and tell you what I mean. Right now, we consider ourselves small time gardeners because we're just growing, we're kind of learning as we go, growing some things well, growing some things not so well. And we weren't really growing enough to feed our family right now. We we were the goal when we say big time gardeners, the goal with that is to be able to be fully sufficient, self-sufficient off of our garden. Well, 80 to 90% self-sufficient, in terms of what we grow. That's what we mean by big time. So we're not talking about like anything else. We're not talking about, you know, trying to become some big YouTube channel or something like that. Even though that would be nice. We wouldn't mind that necessarily. But that's what we mean by that, right? So just so you guys understand, okay. And today, guys, what we want to talk to you guys about is some of the lessons learned that we have from the garden from this season. So yeah, you guys sit tight, and me and Keisha are gonna just go over a few lessons learned from this season, and you guys let us know what you think. Hit the comment section, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit the comment section and let us know what are some of the lessons that you guys have learned from this growth season. And also, do you share any ones that we have? Like, are any of the lessons that we learned some of the same lessons that you guys learned? All right, so let's go.
All right, guys. So lessons learned 2024 about gardening. All right, guys. So excuse the wind in the back. It's a very windy day on our homestead today, but we're going to get through this video anyway, okay? So one of the greatest lessons that I've learned this year is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We were using what we call super poop for like the last few years and last year especially, and we considered that to be some very good um, foundation for to grow our food in. We got pretty good growth from our zucchinis and pretty much everything that we planted. But this year we did something a little bit different, and we see different results. We used a lot of compost that we got from the was it from the city? From the city, and we're seeing something different that we feel like it lacked. But the super poop that we got before had everything from cow manure, llama, but it had a bunch of different horse and everything. It had a lot of different manures mixed together, and it's full of organic matter, and we could tell through the growth of our food. So if it ain't broke, y'all, don't fix it. And if you do want to try, I feel like there's such a variety of a vast, variety of different fertilizers, amendments, and soils that you could use. And if you're going to do that, I would definitely say use it in a portion of your garden. Don't use it on your whole garden because it takes too much time and effort to garden, period, um, for you to go ahead and mess up everything that you work so hard for. So if you want to try something different, I definitely would recommend that you start, have a small little area for a portion of your garden that you try that in.
All right, guys. So the third thing that we've learned this year is irrigate, irrigate, irrigate. For this one, for irrigation and the next one that we're going to talk about, we do have a bit of a disclaimer because so last year this time we weren't here for the main part of the heat wave that we had last year. We were actually in Florida for a funeral. We were there for like almost 4 weeks. So we missed the main part of the heat wave where it was the absolute hottest last year, right? So because of that, we didn't really know what to expect when it came down to the heat wave this year. So I think we underestimated, well, I underestimated exactly how hot it would get this year. I knew it got hot. The kids would tell us, "Mom, Dad, it's hot, it's super hot. We can't even go outside the water." We're like, "All right, cool. Just go out at nighttime or go out early in the morning." So, so we severely underestimated how hot it got. Now, keep in mind though, last year the temps got to the mid-teens often. Like I think it peaked at like 120, almost 120 last year. This year it didn't get as hot in terms of temperature, but the heat was, I don't know if they got the heat index or whatever you want to call it, that was intense. It was really, really hot. So things that we didn't, so I'm super glad that we laid our irrigation when it was still cool out. You guys saw the video where I talked about prepping for the spring and everything, and I was laying irrigation down. So I laid irrigation down in about 90% of our garden. The only places that didn't have irrigation are the places that were just like on the other side of the garden, away from the main water source, right? But the irrigation kind of saved our butts in terms of like a lot of stuff that we had growing, especially the tomatoes, because that was those things were in ground. The raised beds that we had, that irrigation being in place was like a lifesaver. I think if we didn't have that, I don't think we would have got anything. I don't think in terms up to this point. I think most of the plants probably would have died off. Um, so irrigation um, is a must, especially when you're in the desert area, right? Especially here. I underestimated how much irrigation is needed up here. That like standing out here, because when it gets hot midday, you can't come out here. You can't be out here hand watering from 10 or 11 to like sometimes 4. Like it's like super hot. So lesson learned: have your irrigation in place. If you don't have one yet, have a plan to get one. Trust me, not only is it going to save you time and energy in having to stand and hand water, if that's something you enjoy doing, then by all means do it. But when it comes down to like helping to save and salvage your garden from, and protect it and keep it from dying out because of the heat, you're gonna absolutely need it. Number 4 is heat. Shade, shade, shade. Right. So this goes right along with the irrigation thing. I think I underestimated how hot it was gonna be. Right? I knew it was gonna get hot, which is why I bought the shade cloths throughout the winter. However, I think I underestimated exactly how hot it was going to get, because once again, like I said, we weren't here last year at this time when it was really hot. So I didn't know exactly how hot it was going to be. But the shade cloth worked almost flawlessly, right? It worked really well. Now, the, a lot of the vegetables, a lot of the plants did stop growing because it was just way too hot, even though they were in the shade. There's nothing you can do about that, right? But the shade cloth did protect the plants from the harshness of the sun, because the places that we did have the shade, we didn't suffer from sun scald. Like the tomatoes, I thought that, like I said, I underestimated it a little bit, so I left the tomatoes uncovered, and we lost a lot of tomatoes to sun scald. A lot of the peppers we lost to sun scald. Um, So, like I said, I underestimated how intense the heat was going to be on the plants themselves. Something like I said, I wasn't here last year to see any of that. So by the time we got back last year, what may have been sun scald, I may have misinterpreted as blossom end rot. See what I'm saying? So, um, lesson learned: have your shade in place over honestly over your entire garden. If you don't have it in place, because it really doesn't make sense to put it up in the spring when it's not really hot, right? Plants like it comfortable around 95 degrees and below. So you don't need your shade cloth in the early spring, but at least have your frame set up and have your plan set up in place to roll out your shade cloth as soon as you need it, and get it out there early. Don't wait until it's honestly for me. Once it gets over 95, in my opinion, things need to you need to have your shade out. 95 can easily turn into 100, but that's just my opinion. So that's number 4. All right, and the last thing that the last lesson learned for this season so far, and keep in mind this isn't an all-inclusive list. Like there's some other things I'm pretty sure that some lessons we've learned, we just haven't sat down and like really thought about it just yet. But these were the first ones that came to mind like really fast. But the last one is going to be, we didn't have enough flowers for pollinators. That I came into the season with that in mind, with that plan, right? Keisha, we both did, and Keisha did a good job of buying flowers. She was planting flowers, buying flowers. We got like what's it called, a butterfly bush. We got some zinnias. We got the this one right here is off camera, right here, like 3 feet from me. With hollyhocks, sunflowers. But one of the problems is we have this big Palo Verde tree right here, right? And in the spring it blooms really yellow, it's really pretty, and it itself attracts a ton of pollinators, all hummingbirds, bees, everything, right? Wasp, everything, right? But everything goes to the tree,
Yeah,
and not to the garden, and the garden is right next to the tree, right? Uh, But the year we had bees, we lost our bees. I think we said that before. But the year we had bees, we had no problem with pollination. Like things were popping up all over the garden. That like it was surprise, 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 like everywhere, right? But our bees are gone, so we're really having to rely on the native bees. No problem, easy day, right? But that tree attracts all of the pollinators, so they overlook the garden. Even with the sunflowers and all the flowers that we have here, they overlook the garden. So at some point, all the flowers are blown off of the Palo Verde tree at some point, right? It happens every year. But so when the leaves are gone, when the flowers off the tree are gone, I don't think we had enough flowers in the garden to make that transition for the pollinators to go from the tree to the garden. And when we did have them, they were only on one side of the garden, like on the furthest from the tree, the garden on the back side. We'll call it the north side of the garden. That's where we had all the flowers, the sunflowers and the pumpkins and the squash, the melons. That's where all the flowers were. On the other side, we had more of the herbs. So if they come in, if the pollinators, the bees and whatever, are coming from the tree to the garden, they're going to the first part of the garden, and they're not finding anything, and then they're moving on, right? They're not making it to the north side of the garden. So I think next year, one of the main things that we need to do is make sure that we have equal amounts of flowers all throughout the garden, so that those pollinators can make a transition easily from that tree into the south side of the garden to the north side of the garden, and everything will be all good. All right, guys. So that's it. That's all that we have. Those are 5 lessons learned that we have so far this year. You guys hit us up in the comments. Let us know what are some lessons learned that you have from this year that you're going to be better prepared for next year.
And was 2024 an altogether different year for you? Did you do something that different than you did before that worked for you before, and then you did something different now this year and it didn't work? Let us know.
Absolutely. All right. So with that being said, guys, we love y'all. Don't forget to hit the like button on your way out, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Deuces.
This is